full of shit. You understand that? You full of shit.
Dicey Dungeons is a party. It's a fun get-together with all your grooviest, happiest, and most colorful friends. And then somebody throws up in the punch bowl and the party comes to a really awkward end. There's something you need to know about this game. It can be very unfair. Even if you make all the smart decisions in the world, it will only increase your chances of success. In the end, Lady Luck has you by the balls, and more often than not, she's gonna feel like squeezing. Dicey Dungeons is a deck-building game developed by Terry Kavanagh, an Irish gentleman known for making Super Hexagon and VVV. I gotta say, going from this to this, that's quite the leap in genre. Unlike other deck builders that have cards with predetermined numerical values, Dicey Dungeons mixes up the genre by adding another layer of decision making to the formula, namely dice. Each turn you'll use your limited dice rolls and apply them to equipment for different effects. Some are as simple as just dealing damage equal to the dice, but it gets so much more complex and interesting than that. During this challenge run with the Thief, I was able to permanently steal equipment for 3 elemental attacks and poison. Since the requirements for each element were varied, I could often use all of them in one turn to wreak status ailment havoc on my foe. I could dump any 2s or 1s into Poison Needle for a stacking debuff, and I could even duplicate dice or split them to get the numbers I needed. Man, it was satisfying. A typical playthrough consists of 6 dungeon floors littered with enemy encounters, health pickups, upgrades, and shops, ending with a boss fight. The first episode for each character is fairly basic, only implementing the character's specific playstyle. The warrior is by far the simplest, having the ability to re-roll a dice 3 times per turn, and the Fury limit break, which doubles his next action. The thief is the flip side of the warrior, instead utilizing low rolls for multi-hitting equipment, as shown by his unlucky roll limit break, which gives you 4 1s. His ability is to borrow one of the opponent's equipment per turn, which is how this wound up happening. I then proceeded to play out the rest of this run as a face-wrecking bear, and it was awesome. The robot is where things start to get really interesting. You use the calculate ability to roll a dice, with a number being added to the CPU gauge. If you can roll enough dice that the gauge fills up, you get a jackpot with a special selection of abilities. But going over the limit will cause an error, locking out your equipment for the rest of the turn. Each level up increases the CPU gauge, and the auto roll limit break gives you an instant jackpot. As for the inventor, well, I hope you don't get too attached to certain equipment, because after every fight, the inventor will dismantle an equipment piece of your choice and turn it into a new ability for the next fight. Thankfully, the game adds more chests to collect on early floors to make sure that you have at least a little control over your loadout. My favorite thing to do with her is upgrade the flamethrower and use her focus limit break to turn all dice into 6s. I'm about to go Ripley on your ass, Mr. Snowman.
Take it down with one hit!
The Witch? Well, I gotta admit, wasn't a fan at first. Equipment behaves like spells that you have to prepare from your spellbook by using a corresponding dice. It was overwhelming at first, and I didn't like how spells had to be prepared before you could use them. But after getting used to it, I discovered just how powerful she could be with the right spells. Now the Jester, that was the playstyle that quickly became my favorite. Your equipment goes into a deck of cards that cycle through as you use them. His Snap limit break allows you to freely use any matching cards with the maximum value of 6, allowing you to blast through enemies with enough luck. Building your deck right and destroying weaker cards was massively enjoyable. I actually managed to win my first game with the Jester without even reaching the max level, though it did come down to the wire. These 6 playstyles are already varied enough, but then you get the episodes beyond episode 1 that add new challenges and playstyles. For example, my Jester in episode 2 wound up with the Warrior's equipment and limit break, taking what was originally a frankly boring playstyle and spicing it up with the deck mechanic. But then you get the Warrior's third episode where he loses max HP with every level up, but gets a main weapon that heals him. I don't know what I keep doing wrong in this one, but it's starting to irritate me. I'm sure I don't need to tell you since you've been watching this whole time, but while Dicey Dungeons can be cruel, at least the charming atmosphere will help keep you in good spirits. It's part of what keeps me coming back for more. I like Slay the Spire, but the atmosphere and music isn't nearly as appealing as in Dicey Dungeons. Oh, hang on guys, it's party time. The soundtrack by Chipsel is a chiptune delight, with such well-realized melodies that it gives me goosebumps. I always crank up the volume when that tune from Swing Me Another Six starts playing, and the worst part about unlocking the Jester was knowing that I'd never get to hear Against All Odds in the game again. Beginner's Luck, Fighting Chance, Step Right Up, this soundtrack gives me life, and I was overjoyed to see that it's available on Bandcamp for a super cheap price. Totally worth it. Any problems besides the crushing disappointment of losing due to crappy luck? Yeah, I'm really not a fan of some of these challenge episodes. This Losers Weepers challenge for the Jester constantly pollutes your deck with lousy cards, and even takes away the Snap Limit Break, replacing it with the Delete ability so you can try to keep your deck in order. But you have to do it in the midst of battle, which is just opening you up to take damage. It just feels like a mess, and I'm not looking forward to trying it again. Speaking of micromanaging, here I am fighting an extremely annoying enemy in the Worse Than a Curse challenge. This is just a normal enemy, and it still took me 5 minutes to slog through because I'm trying my damnedest to stay alive and deal a little damage every turn. It was so tedious that I nearly threw up my hands and said screw it, and I still wound up failing this run. Dicey Dungeons is fun, but when it's tedious, it's really tedious. But when I'm being serenaded by one of the grooviest chiptune soundtracks I've ever heard, playing with cute little anthropomorphic dice, and being antagonized by the surprisingly likable Lady Luck, I just can't stay mad at Dicey Dungeons. It's available on Steam and the Switch for the very reasonable price of 15 bucks. Whoa! Now how do you like that for good timing? I highly recommend giving it a shot. Just be warned, that Lady Luck can be a real bitch. Thanks a lot for watching. Become a spooky, scary subscriber so I can show you some more games in the future. Besides the annual Steam Shmups coming up in October, I also have something very special planned for December. I hope you'll enjoy it. But until then, this is A Skeleton, signing out.